there, it's Juliana Michaels and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm sharing a mix of things from an unboxing of some new Scrapbookcom goodies to their Cards for Kindness program and their latest exclusive stamp set that was created to bring awareness to that program. I'm also sharing a 2-for-1 card idea using some of the new stencils, that stamp set, and Astro paste. If you aren't familiar with Cards for Kindness, it's a global initiative that centers around uplifting others and providing a handmade card for anyone who needs it. This program has grown so much that they recently formed the Creative Kindness Foundation to help expand their mission and reach. Card makers like you and I can send in handmade cards, and then they will distribute them to organizations that support people in need. Currently, they are providing cards to veterans, frontline workers, first responders, children's hospitals, cancer patients, senior citizens, deployed troops, people experiencing homelessness, and so many more. You can find a link on the screen here or in the description box below to learn more about how you can become a volunteer for Creative Kindness. As always, please feel free to follow along using your stash of supplies. However, if you're interested in any of the products I'm using in this video, you can find that supply list with links in the description box below. Your support when you shop through those links means so much to me. So I recently got a package from Scrapbook.com and it included some new stamps and stencils that I wanted to play with and share with you. The stamp set is one of their Cards for Kindness stamp sets, and if you're not familiar with Cards for Kindness, this is just a campaign that Scrapbook.com runs where you can create and share your handmade cards with them, and then they have various organizations that they donate those cards to, and then they send those cards out to people that need a little pick-me-up of some sort. So this is just a new stamp set for the Cards for Kindness campaign, and it just contains some nice little sentiments and then some fun little images with the rainbows and the flowers and the sunshine that I think will make a nice addition to any kind of card making that you might be doing. Then there is also included in the package some of the new stencils that are now available from Scrapbook.com, and of course the first one that caught my attention was this butterfly one, which I love all things butterfly, so that one definitely speaks to me. And then I also thought these checkerboard and this brick patterns were really cool. So this is just a kind of extra large size, and then there's a smaller size, and then there's also this brick. And I like that these designs are large enough that if you put any kind of like a paste or anything through it, you can be able to get that paste doing some sort of texture that will, really add to your design. And then besides these four, which are kind of more neutral, I guess, in my opinion, they also has some more stencils that are very themed for upcoming holidays and even like the summer. So there's this fun little layered ice cream cones that gives you the one layer that does the top and then another layer that does the actual cone. And then there's this geometric snowflake pattern, which I think is a really nice addition to some of the other snowflake stencils that they currently carry. And then, of course, with Halloween lovers, myself included, this is a kind of fun layering stencil that has these large bats, and then there's another layer that does like little stars. So again, just some fun stencils that are now available at Scrapbook.com. And all of these stencils are 6x8 in size, so they're a really nice size to use either on cards or on scrapbook pages. So again, just another nice feature with these stencils. One of the other new products that's coming soon is this mixed media paper in an 8.5 by 11 size. It's already currently available in a 4.25 by 5.5, so like an A2 size, and then also in 6x8. but now they're also going to be offering it in this large 8.5 by 11 size, and then they also are going to have it in 12 by 12. And then as you can also see, this comes in white and black. Right now, these are coming soon, so you just want to click the coming soon and turn on your notifications, and you will get a text message or an email, whichever way you sign up, to be notified when these get in stock. So recommend getting on that notification list if you're interested in these. This is a really heavy duty thick paper. I mean, they say that it's 400 GSM. I always struggle with the whole paperweight thing. It gets very confusing from one manufacturer to another. They all do it a little bit differently, but I mean, you can see like that's just one sheet of paper, like how thick that is. It's really, really thick and sturdy. So it's not something you're going to want to use just for like generalized card making or die cutting or anything necessarily, but it's really great for doing mixed media, working with inks and pastes and stuff like that. So I'm going to be using some of this paper in my project that I'm going to share with you here. And just a little side note, I price-wise would recommend when this is available going with this 8.5 by 11 size, because you can just cut this down and get 4 pieces of the A2 size out of one sheet of paper. So there's 15 sheets here, so total you can get 60 card bases from this one paper pack, where right now the small paper pack that's already cut down for you is only 15 pieces. So this price is a little less expensive to buy the larger paper pack versus the smaller one. Just throwing that out there for you to keep in mind when if you're trying to save a little when buying supplies, especially something like paper. For this card, I'm going to be working with this Cards for Kindness stamp set called Sunshine from Scrapbook.com. Going to be using the Flutter and the large checkerboard stencils, and then this handwritten background stamp from Hurley. The inks I'm going to be working with is an Archival ink, and this is called Aubergine. And then I'm also got Seedless Preserves, Milled Lavender, and Dusty Concord Distress inks. If you don't have this Archival ink, you could also use Dusty Concord Archival ink. You just want some sort of permanent ink to do the stamping, so another option would maybe be a pigment ink. You would just need to make sure you let it dry. And then the other product that I'm going to be playing with is some of the new Astro paste from Hurley. And the color I've got here is Slippery When Wet, which is kind of a real pretty gold color. Alright, so to get started, I'm going to be doing some of the stenciling, and I'm just going to be placing my paper here in the center of the Ulta Ultra Sticky Grid mat. And I'm going to start by placing the stencil here over my paper. And I want to kind of get the design centered on my background. So I'm going to kind of play around with that. That's what's nice with this stencil being so large. You can really kind of position it however you want. And then next I'm going to be using some Distress ink here, and I'm going to be working with Dusty Concord, and I've just got a small blending brush here. I'm going to ink that up, and then I'm just going to apply that through the stencil to these open areas. Just kind of working in a circular motion to get that ink onto the stencil, onto the open areas here on the paper. And as you can see, I'm kind of using my hand to help hold it down here in the center of the paper so that we don't get ink accidentally underneath those openings. And I'm just going to continue with that until I've got the whole background inked up here. Alright, so now I'm going to clean this stencil off here just real quick, give it a little spritz with some water, and then clean it off with a clean paper towel or rag or whatever you like to use. But just a little bit of some water will work. And then we're going to shift that stencil because I want to add some color to the open areas. And so we're just going to shift that stencil over and line up over where we've already inked. And you'll notice that the square that you inked before is slightly smaller than the part of the stencil that's covering it. So you can kind of use that to help you gauge getting this lined up. Just kind of make sure you get that centered all the way across there. And just push that down, get it that in place. And then now I'm going to take some milled lavender. So I'm going to kind of wipe my brush off a little bit here on my paper towel. And then we're going to do the same thing with the milled lavender and just add that to these open areas with the brush. And again, just kind of using my fingers to help hold that stencil down here, especially in the center where it kind of wants to pop up just a little bit. Okay, so then we'll peel off the stencil and reveal our design. And there we have it. As you can see, I didn't get it perfectly lined up because the little spaces are kind of off a little bit, but I think that looks fine. I'm totally fine with that. Totally fine with that. So you can just clean off that stencil and then set that to the side. And the next step I want to do is we're going to add a little more stenciling. And this time we're going to use that Flutter stencil. We're just going to position that over the paper. This time I'm going to use Seedless Preserves Distress Ink. Clean up my brush a little bit there. And then we're going to apply that through the stencil with the brush. And just add another layer of color and pattern to the background here. And we'll peel that off and reveal that design. Isn't that pretty? So we've got our stencil, and of course you could just go and wash this off, or I'm going to show you what you can do with this leftover ink. So you just want to grab another piece of your mixed media cardstock. So I'm going to spritz this stencil with some water to kind of reactivate and re-wet that ink, but I'm going to do it off camera so I don't get water all over my paper here. So just give it several spritz. So you can see here how that re-wet the ink. And now I'm going to flip this upside down and position it over my paper and just press down. I'm going to take a clean paper towel and lay that on top and kind of dab up any excess ink that might kind of seep through the stencil. Okay, and then we're just going to peel that off and reveal that design. Isn't that beautiful? So that's called a monoprint, technically. So yeah, isn't that pretty? A little fuzz there. So yeah, so now we've got kind of a 2-for-1 background. And now you might be able to get one more pull off of that, but probably not a ton. So at this point I would just you know, clean this off and move on to the next step. All right, so at this point I'm ready to add to the next layer of things, and what I want to do now is add just a little bit of some interest with some splatters. And I'm just going to use my mister bottle here, and you can kind of tap off the nozzle like that to add splatters. Another thing you can do is spritz slowly with this and kind of get some random splatters, or you can spray it into your hand and then kind of pick that up and then open your hand and kind of flick your fingers to add some splatters that way. And then you can just kind of let that dry, or you can use a paper towel to dry it. If you use a paper towel to dry it, it's going to lift off that ink while it's wet and kind of reveal more white dots. I kind of, for this look, I'm just going to go with letting this dry. I can use my heat tool to kind of speed that up, and it just kind of causes that ink to just bleed a little bit instead of lifting it off and away. You just get a little different look that way. Now we're going to do some stamping with this background stamp here. So I'm just going to apply some of this temporary adhesive here to the center of my stamping platform, and that's just going to help me hold the paper in place, because as you can see, this stamp is larger than my paper that I'm stamping on, so there's not really any way to use the magnets to help hold anything in place. So it's just a little trick I came up with to help with that. And now I'm just going to apply some of the archival ink to the stamp. Ooh, there we go. Isn't that pretty? Ooh, love, love, love. All right, and I want to do the same thing on this other background as well. Position it there, and we'll re-ink. Ooh, that is so pretty. I didn't get quite as good of an impression there, so I'm going to maybe try to re-stamp that. There we go. All right. So here are our backgrounds at this point. And if you wanted to add like maybe some little water droplets to this, you probably could as well. Definitely have some options there. Another thing you could do if you wanted to add a little more interest to this background, you could add some little splatters with some dusty Concord. So I'm going to smush that ink pad on my craft mat, get a little bit of it wet with a little water there, and then I've got a splatter brush. You can just tap that across the background here. Add a little more interest to the design. Of course, you could also skip this part if you like, and then you can just set that to the side to dry, or use your heat tool to dry. All right, so we are going to go back to some stencil work and get our paper lined back up. And now we're going to position that stencil back over where we inked earlier. So you're just going to take your time, get that lined up real good. And now I'm going to apply some of this Astro paste just kind of here in the center of the background. So I'm not going over the whole thing. But I want to kind of do maybe a little diagonal, kind of like a little diagonal effect a lot of times. So maybe we'll do something like that. I'm not going for like real crazy complete coverage. I want kind of more of like a little like mixed media effect, and you know, not full glitter coverage. So I think it looks pretty good to me. So we'll peel that off here just very carefully. Ooh, yeah, that's pretty. Okay. And then we're going to set this to the side and just let this air dry by itself. So depending on how humid it is and hot where you are, it might take a little longer. So, you know, set this to the side, and then, you know, you can work on another step for the cards with the sentiment and that while this is drying. And then I'm going to repeat that same thing with this background. So I'm just going to get that stencil. Try to find the butterflies from before. I may have flipped, oh yeah, because it was backwards. You know what? We flipped that design over, so we've got to flip the stencil over. So I'm going to clean this. I'm going to clean this off real quick, and then we can use it to do this layer. All right, so now we've got our clean stencil. So we're going to get our paper back down in place here. So you remember we're going to flip our stencil over, so because we used it this way with this background, and so the ink was on this surface, and then we flipped it over to put it down here. So you'll just have to kind of play around until you find where it lines up. It took me a couple minutes here to find it, and then once you get it figured out, you can do the same thing. Just line it up with the inked image below it, and then we're going to take this same Astro paste and apply that through the stencil. And again, I think I'm just going to kind of do that kind of haphazardly through the middle here to get kind of a mixed media effect, and not really trying to get a perfect coverage there. And you saw me there, I got a little crazy and went under the stencil, but I think we're okay. All right. Alrighty. I'm gonna lift that off. Oh yeah, that's so pretty. And so then we're gonna just set this to the side, like with the other one, and just let this dry. And then you just want to make sure you immediately get this into some water so the paste doesn't dry on there, or clean it right away. Again, so just so that paste doesn't dry on there. Ugh, frustration. All right, so now for the embellishments on the card, I'm going to use that mixed media heavy weight paper again with the Tim Holtz Vault Scribbly Butterfly dies. And the reason I'm using this paper is I'm going to add some color to the paper using some spray stains, and this paper holds up pretty well with the spray stains. So I'm going to be working here in my splat box. Just any kind of a cardboard box would also work, just to help keep the spray off of your desk, or it just helps protect your craft area and keep the overspray from getting all over your crafting table. And I'm going to spritz the paper with a little bit of water just to kind of prepare it for adding the spray. And I'm working with Seedless Preserves Distress Spray Stain. And you can see just by adding that water there already, it kind of helps it move around a little bit. So add a little more water. And then I'm going to use my heat tool to dry that. And you can kind of pick that up and tilt it and move that ink around. And if you've got any big puddles anywhere, you can kind of tap that off onto the paper towel and then just kind of turn it and dry it. If you wanted to do multiple colors, you could do multiple colors. You could add the same color, the colors all at the same time, or you could dry this and then add another color on top of it to kind of layer it a little bit. It's really up to you, but I just kind of wanted to go more with like a more solidly Seedless Preserves color so that the design would kind of stand out on the card background. Now that this paper is completely dry, I'm going to go and die cut it using these two dies. Here are our die cut butterflies, and then I also used the shadow layer, and I die cut that from vellum. Just wanted to add a little interest and help that stand out a little bit more without covering up all that background. Alright, so now for the sentiment, I'm just working on a piece of smooth white cardstock, not the mixed media paper, but it just like the Nina white cardstock. And I'm going to stamp a couple of the sentiments from that Sunshine stamp set for that Cards for Kindness campaign. And I'm going to be using embossing ink. And then I'm going to, before I stamp though, I'm going to rub over the surface of my paper here with a little embossing buddy to just kind of help get any static off the paper. And this little tin, if you're curious, is just one of the Tim Holtz storage tins, and I just like to use it to keep all my embossing supplies kind of all together and organized. So just gonna ink those stamps up real good, and then stamp that over onto the paper. And this is just a piece of computer paper, printer paper folded in half. I'm just going to pour the powder over the top of it, and that looks good. And you can pour that powder back into the jar. No need to waste that good powder. And then I'm going to heat emboss this with my heat tool. So I'm just going to turn this on and then melt that powder. There are sentiments, and then I'm just going to trim those out with my paper trimmer. You could also use scissors and then adhere those to the center of the cards. All right, so for the backgrounds, I went ahead and trimmed these down to 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And then I've got 2 more panels of white cardstock that are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. This is just a smooth white cardstock. And I'm going to take the dusty Concord and that blending brush and just blend some of that ink just around the outer edge of both of these panels. And then I'm going to use this as kind of my own custom colored cardstock to mount behind the background here. And as you can see, you don't really need to go, you know, in the center because we're going to cover that up. Ooh, I like that one. I think I might do this one, Seedless Preserves. I think that'll pop a little bit more there with this one. You can also probably do that milled lavender too. So, or if you really want to get the bling on, you could do you could also do a gold cardstock, maybe a gold glitter cardstock even. That would be pretty. Now I'm going to take this little blending tool and just ink the edges of the sentiment strips. And then lastly, I think I'm going to ink the edges of these papers too with a little ink. So I'm going to do some dusty Concord on the edge of this one. And you've seen me using different blending brushes for different things. And yeah, I like to use these for inking the edges like this, just so you have like just a small little inked edge. But if you're wanting to get more ink on there, then I think the brushes are nice for that. Alright, so now all we have to do is assemble these and they are ready to go. Here's a look at the completed cards. I hope you enjoyed seeing how these cards were created using some of the new stamps and stencils from Scrapbook.com. I also hope that you'll consider donating your time and talent to creative kindness and to help spread love and kindness to those in need. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can join me on a more regular basis. Hit the like if you enjoyed this video, And if you want to join me on my other social media platforms, you can find the links to those in the description box below. Also, feel free to leave me a comment if you have any questions or if there's something you'd love to share with me and our community. I'll see you in the comments below and in the next video. Until next time, stay crafty, my friend.